everyone, and welcome back to another insightful episode of Mid Synapse podcast series. I'm your host, Setvi Shah, and today we're focusing on a condition that touches millions of lives across the globe, which is breast cancer. What every woman should actually know about it. And to help us decode this important subject, I'm joined by Dr. Nazneen, an accomplished oncology specialist. Dr. Nazneen completed her MD in radiation oncology from the prestigious RCC in Trivandrum, followed by a DND in medical oncology at VPS Lakeshore Hospital, and holds the MRCP specialty certificate in medical oncology. With her diverse expertise across both radiation and medical oncology, she brings a holistic perspective to breast cancer care. So, Dr. Nazneen, it's an absolute pleasure to have you with me for this conversation.
Thank you, Hetli, for that wonderful introduction. Currently, I am working as a medical oncologist in a multi-specialty hospital in Cochin. Today, I would like to discuss about breast cancer and its basic treatment approaches.
Yeah, doctor. And also, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. So, doctor, to begin with, in your practice, what screening strategies and imaging modalities have proven most effective in detecting breast cancer early, especially in younger women or high-risk women?
We recommend screening mammogram only for females above 40 years. And in my clinical practice for the past 1 year, I have come across 3 to 4 cases of early breast cancer detected through screening mammograms. Though I understand every clinician may not have this observation, but in young females, we usually do not recommend any screening, only in high-risk females. High-risk young females means those who have BRCA mutation positive, or those with family history of any breast or ovarian cancers, or those in childhood they have received radiation for any malignancies like lymphoma. We follow such patients with 6 monthly or yearly breast MRIs, because you see in young breast, the breast tissue is more dense. So mammogram may not be accurate in picking up these small lesions. So we have higher resolution scans are needed. So we offer them breast MRI. In BRCA mutated females, we advise them to undergo prophylactic mastectomy, but most of them are of young age, so they may not prefer straight away to go for a prophylactic mastectomy. So we do surveillance with the MRI scans. It is done 6 monthly to yearly, and after they attain a certain age, they may be willing for a prophylactic mastectomy.
Yeah, I think that's very insightful, and also it actually highlights how crucial the screening process is also. So, doctor, building on that only, how can healthcare professionals better identify and counsel women with elevated breast cancer risk due to, family history or genetic factors, or even lifestyle-related risk these days?
One of the most important thing we can do as a healthcare professional is to take a proper risk assessment. That means going beyond just asking if there is any history of breast cancer, because many patients may straight away deny any family history, or they may not recall any details of cancer in their family. So we have to be patient, and we have to take time and build a rapport, and then we have to take history and ask history of any relevant breast or ovarian cancer in the family. Thereby, we can uncover an important family history, and which helps us in guiding the treatment or offering them genetic counseling and genetic testing if needed. Then the second important thing is the lifestyle changes. Many people are unaware that obesity is linked to cancers. In USA, the 40% of the cancers has been linked to obesity and overweight. So we have to incorporate healthy lifestyle changes, and this obesity causes alteration in the metabolism of sexual hormones, and this increases the insulin levels and insulin like growth factors. So these growth factors in long run it causes cell proliferation, and it also keeps the body in a state of pro-inflammatory state. So it is important we have to do exercise and remain healthy and fit. And also the childhood obesity is an important risk factor for developing cancer in the adulthood and in later stages of the life. And obesity is not only linked to breast cancers, it is also linked to kidney cancer, esophageal, endometrial cancers. So people should be aware that obesity not only linked to cardiovascular disease, it can also causes cancer.
Absolutely. I think that's a very valid point that you've mentioned, and I think proactive counseling actually can make a real difference in when it comes to interventions, and especially early interventions also. So now, doctor, let's move into treatment part. So what recent advancements in chemotherapy protocols such as dose-dense regimens, targeted agents with chemo, or improved supportive care have you found most impactful in your clinical practice?
So in breast cancer, we follow the standard chemotherapy, dose-dense chemo for all breast cancers. But dose-dense means giving the same chemotherapy dose. Instead of giving 3 weekly, we give a 2 weekly interval. So by shortening the interval, we target the repopulation of the cancer cells. Longer the interval between chemotherapy, cancer cells may redivide and repopulate. So in order to prevent that, we give dose-dense chemotherapy, especially in triple-negative breast cancers. The recent advances have introduced are mainly in locally advanced breast cancers, mainly in triple-negative and HER2 positive breast cancer. Triple-negative breast cancers are those breast cancers which lacks the positivity for estrogen receptor, progesterone receptor, and HER2 receptor. So in these subgroups, which is locally advanced, that is, if they have node or they are stage 2, stage 3, we give neoadjuvant chemotherapy and decrease the size of the tumor, then they will undergo surgery. So in these patients, neoadjuvant chemotherapy is given along with immunotherapy. Because chemoimmunotherapy has resulted in increased in pathological complete response and also increased event-free survival in triple-negative breast cancer. This is the recent advance in triple-negative, and in HER2 positive breast cancer, we initially used to give only single HER2 blockade with trastuzumab, but now we give dual HER2 blockade. That too in locally advanced stage 2, stage 3 cancer, we give dual HER2 blockade with trastuzumab and pertuzumab along with the chemotherapy. Here we do not use anthracyclines. We omit anthracyclines. We use taxane and carboplatin along with the dual anti-HER2 blockade, because anthracyclines in the long term has cardiac side effects. So we tend to prevent that by omitting anthracycline in HER2 positive breast cancer, and has also resulted in increased pathological complete response and also increased event-free survival. So these are the standard coming to locally advanced breast cancer. Now coming to supportive care, there is an introduction of carpooling devices like DigiCaps. They are highly beneficial, especially in taxane-based chemotherapy, because many females are reluctant to come for chemotherapy if they are working because of the alopecia. These carpooling devices is beneficial, especially in taxane-based chemotherapy. The mechanism is these carpooling devices are born during the chemotherapy sessions, and it causes scalp hypothermia, which result in vasoconstriction of the blood vessels. So the less chemotherapy drugs are delivered to the scalp region. So it prevents alopecia to a greater extent in taxane chemotherapy. More than 60% of the patient had less than grade 1 alopecia with the in taxane group. But in anthracycline, it has no much effect. Most of them had a grade 2 alopecia, even with the DigiCaps. So this is the recent advantage discovery, which is boon to many patients.
Yeah, I think it is also showing so much, the research actually is showing so much hopes too, and it is actually encouraging for patients with cancer also. So it's really good hope that research is showing in the cancer treatment especially. So now, doctor, moving on to the next question, how do you approach tailoring chemotherapy plans based on tumor subtype, stage, and patient comorbidities so that outcomes are optimized while minimizing toxicity?
As I told you, If early breast cancer comes to my OPD, if its size is less than 2 centimeter and its nodes are negative, then we offer them upfront surgery. Followed by surgery, we based on the histopathology report, we may offer them chemotherapy. But if it is size is less than 2 centimeter and nodes are negative, then we omit anthracyclines. Anthracyclines are known to cause cardiac side effects, so we give taxane, cyclophosphamide regimen 4 cycles. That is enough for very early breast cancer, which are non-negative. Now coming to locally advanced breast cancer, in triple negative we give neoadjuvant chemoimmunotherapy, and after 8 cycles of neoadjuvant chemoimmunotherapy in triple negative breast cancer, the patient will undergo surgery. If there is any residual disease, then along with the immunotherapy we can add capecitabine for 6 to 8 cycles, and immunotherapy should be given up to 1 year. In that triple negative, if there is any BRCA positive patients, we can offer them targeted therapy with olaparib inhibitor, olaparib, PARP inhibitors, olaparib, along with the immunotherapy pembrolizumab for 1 year. Now coming to HER2 positive breast cancers, locally advanced, we give neoadjuvant chemotherapy. We omit anthracycline. We give taxane, carboplatin, and dual anti-HER2 blockade, trastuzumab and pertuzumab. And after 6 cycles, the patient will undergo surgery. And if there is any residual disease, then there is another new drug called TDM1, which is an adotrastuzumab linked to an chemotherapy agent, emtansine. It is a microtubule inhibitor. So it acts as both targeted therapy and chemotherapy. So this is given for 14 cycles in positive breast cancer if there is a residual disease even after chemotherapy. If no residual disease, then we will give trastuzumab for 1 year. And coming to hormone receptor positive breast cancers, if they are high risk features like 4 lymph nodes positive or 1 to 3 lymph nodes positive with a Ki67 more than 20%, along with the endocrine, after completion of chemotherapy, along with the endocrine therapy, we give a CDK4/6 inhibitor, abemaciclib, for 2 years. So this is the basic plan for the locally advanced and early breast cancers.
Yeah, that's actually insightful that you shared, doctor. So now, doctor, finally, as more women are surviving breast cancer, what should clinicians be aware of when monitoring survivors for late effects of chemotherapy, and how can we best support their long-term quality of life?
So after completion of the treatment, we follow up the patient mainly for looking at the side effects of the chemotherapy, radiation therapy. The main side effects are cardiac toxicity. We have to evaluate them, monitor them with ECG, cardiac echo, and we do echo 6 monthly for up to 2 years after if they have received a trastuzumab or anthracycline prior to surgery. And similarly, we have to promptly manage if they have any dyslipidemia, hypertension. We have to manage that also. Then another distressing side effect is the peripheral neuropathy with the taxane chemotherapy. So we offer them neuropathic pain controlling agents, physiotherapy. Then most of the patients are hormone receptor positive and they may be on hormone therapy for 5 to 7 years. So before starting on hormone therapy, we look for we check for osteoporosis with DEXA scan or bone mineral density scan, because letrozole and endocrine therapy will cause osteoporosis. So if their degree of osteoporosis is very high in that scan, we offer them bone strengthening agents like zoldronic acid along with the vitamin D3, calcium supplements, and endocrine therapy. Then with the chemotherapy, after 4 to 5 intervals, they are risk of developing leukemias and myelodysplastic syndrome. So we have to do routine blood tests to check for this. So the cancer survivorship is does include not only oncologists but also the cardiologist, neurologist, psychologists all have to work together to ensure the patient well-being. And we also do a routine mammogram yearly once to check for the recurrence. So these are the basic treatment follow-up approach.
Yeah, I think that's an important reminder, and I think survivorship can go beyond remission and truly focus on, restoring health and quality of life. It's really important for cancer patients, especially. So, Doctor, as we wrap up today's session, thank you so much for sharing, such a comprehensive and practical perspective on breast cancers from screening to survivorship. So thank you so much for sharing that with us today.
Thank you, Hetvi, for giving me an opportunity to talk on breast cancer.
Thank you, Doctor. And to our listeners, early detection, personalized treatment, and long-term care can make all the difference. And if you found today's discussion valuable, and if you're a healthcare professional, remember that who is eager to delve deeper into medical topics or have questions, do not hesitate to join us on the Medicine Apps platform. Medicine Apps platform is not just a resource, it's a dynamic space where you can connect with your medical peers, participate in meaningful discussions, and contribute to the ongoing evolution of healthcare. So until next time, stay informed and keep leading conversations that actually matter.